Hit the takedown, ground and pound, that was from the top. Heel hooking, omoplata, leave you in the knot. Pound for pound, been the greatest, sitting on the top. And I'm laughing at the fools who think they coming for the spot. You ain't got a fucking shot, it's already mine. You can't never fucking stop, you know I stay on the grind. Broken bones and black eyes, they just part of the life. Haymaker MMA, we taking over your mics. No sleeping, bloody knuckles, it's nothing to the hustle. I'll be fighting till I die, every day is still a struggle. I made it out the rubble, my knees ain't never buckle. I came here for a fight, but I'm ready for a rumble. So you gotta feel the chaos we've been leaving behind. Cause ain't nothing going down that I didn't design. But it's time to start the show, so extinguish the flame. Haymaker MMA, we going straight for your brain, yeah.
And welcome to Haymaker MMA. I'm your host, EJ Reed, joined by my co-hosts, Aaron Admire and Steve Johnson. What's going on, fellas?
What's up? Happy Thursday or whatever day it is.
Nothing much, man. Chilling, enjoying this opportunity to be on this platform with y'all.
Cool. So to give a brief introduction to the listeners out there, what we're about, we're a podcast by the fans, so like we're not going to take ourselves too seriously. It's more of a casual type of setting. We're not going to be breaking down the X's and O's. If you want that, go find Ray Longo's podcast or go to Teddy Atlas's podcast. So it's just going to be like, shooting the shit in the basement or at a barbershop. So to let the listeners get to know us a little bit better, I'm going to go around and kind of let everybody introduce themselves. I'll start off. Once again, my name is EJ Reed, originally from Charleston, South Carolina. I now reside in Jefferson City, Missouri. And I became an MMA fan probably around 13 years ago. One of my roommates, he had UFC Undisputed, like I think it was either 2009 or 2010. It was kind of like real life Street Fighter. That's how I got to know like a lot of the fighters' names. I was like a casual fan before that. I knew like the Chuck Liddells, the Tito Ortizes, the Ken Shamrocks, Josh Barnett's, but like I was like super casual. But like once I started playing the game, I really got into it. And like the first card that I watched like on my own was the Brock Lesnar Shane Carwin. This is back in the days where you didn't even have like the Fire Sticks. I had to like hook my computer up to the TV and have like the shitty feed. And Brock Lesnar came back. Shane Carwin rocked him in the first round. Brock Lesnar came back. And then I remember like the first time he really going out like at a bar and watching it was like the next month. I had to move out of my college apartment because my lease was up and I had to move into a hotel. I'm like, I don't got nothing else to do. Let me go watch this fight. It was Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. Y'all remember that fight? Yeah. When Chael was juiced to the gills, beating the fuck out of Anderson. Anderson pulled it out with the last round with that triangle choke. So, yeah, and ever since then, I've been watching like pretty much every pay-per-view. Like, UFC does a good job of like marketing themselves. Like, it's almost like episodic television. You're like, you gotta watch the pay-per-view every month. Unlike boxing where like, the big matches are far and few in between. So like, yeah, if I don't watch it live, I'll go back and watch the replay. So, I've been a fan ever since. I'll hand it over to you, Admire.
Me, Kansas City, lived around here my whole life. MMA, I got into it because Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn were on wrestling. So I started going down that wormhole when I was young. Went back and rented all the UFC tapes from UFC 1. I've seen every UFC big card there has been. I've missed some fight nights, but I've been watching it all. I really got into it first season of Ultimate Fighter. I watched the show, and then after that, I watched the big card. Rich Franklin was on it. Forrest Griffin, George St. Pierre was on that. I mean, it was all kinds of fighters on that shit. So I was hooked ever since then. I been to a lot of local shows. I know some of the local fighters that have been into the UFC. No longer. Let's see. What was it? UFC 126, Silva versus Belfort. I was there in attendance. I've seen Anderson Silva, Vitor Belfort live, Cowboy Cerrone, John Jones, Ryan Bader, Kid Yamamoto. I've seen a lot of the greats fight. Yeah.
Wait, hold up. You went to the you said it was Silva and Vitor Belfort?
Yeah, when Silva did a front kick straight up the middle, knocked him out, kicked him right in his jaw.
How'd you score tickets to that?
My ex-wife, she got me tickets for Christmas, and we ended up going to it. It was like February 26, 2011, I think, something like that. Very last row of the Mandalay Bay, as high as up as you can go my back was against the fucking wall. That's about how it was. And the tickets were very expensive. That's back when UFC ran like one big show a month. There weren't hardly any fight nights. You waited a long time to see a fight, so tickets were very expensive.
You were gonna say something about that, Steven?
No, I said I remember that front kick to Vitor Belfort's jaw. I was like, oh my God, what I just see. I thought I just saw murder.
Yeah, and watching it back when I got home from Vegas, I watched it back, and I think Joe Rogan said that was the first front kick knockout in the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like it was a lot of stuff surrounding Anderson Silva like before that fight. This was like the little weird phase where he was like not really fighting. I remember watching it at a bar, like people were like kind of groaning because like he was like doing that hand fighting at the beginning and like not act like he wanted to fight, and then like out of nowhere, boom, right to the face. Man, I think he finished it up with a couple punches.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of action in that fight. Anderson was running a lot. Vitor, I think, got a hold of him once and kind of threw him, but not a lot of excitement in that fight at all until that front kick happened and it was game over. That's kind of the downfall of going to a live event is, you're pretty much going for the main event usually, and it was over quick. My favorite fighter, GSP, I like the long drawn out fights, the back and forth, stuff like that. So, I don't prefer the quick knockout.
I would say since you were there, you said it wasn't a lot of action. I bet he made up for it though.
Yeah. The best thing to come out of it was, that was the night that John Jones beat Ryan Bader. And Dana White came in and said, hey, you're next to fight Shogun for the belt. So it was cool getting to see John Jones, awarded that opportunity in real life. And my claim to fame is I bet $600 on Ryan Bader to beat John Jones.
Man, you just gave away money.
Just gave away. I bet $600 on John Jones to beat Ryan Bader. I think 100 on Rich Franklin to beat Forrest Griffin, which Forrest Griffin won. And then I can't remember who the other big fight was on that card, but I lost $100 on that one too. It was a very expensive night.
How was like the like the after parties and stuff after a fight like that? Or did you even go out?
Fucking insane. I'd never been to Vegas, neither had my ex-wife, so we ended up in the basement of the Mandalay Bay where a band was playing. We met some millionaires. They fed us drinks all night for free. I ended up on stage singing with the band somehow. I get a little squirrely when I'm drunk, so it was a great time. That was like peak tap out era. Everybody had their tap out shirts and shorts and shit on. Like it's a rowdy crowd, especially when you get the alcohol put into them.
What else was like the gear back, like the affliction tier?
Yeah. Affliction was big back then. BJ Penn, I think he was part owner of Elite FC, so that was a big thing. This was back before they had the fight kits and all that. They could wear whatever they wanted.
Yeah, man. Like I miss those days where like you could actually be an individual. Like Anderson Silva was gonna come through with like the bumblebee, like the yellow shorts, and then what was my man's name? Ah, man, he went to Bellator, black fighter. Steve, talk about wrestler.
Oh,
He was a wrestler. He was Penn State.
Oh, Phil Davis.
Phil.
Pink, yeah, the pink and the pink
Yeah.
shorts or the pink and black ones.
It was Phil. Was it Davis? Was it Phil?
Yeah,
Davis?
it was Phil. It was. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it was
Davis.
Phil.
Yeah. I know his first name was Phil. You're right, Amber. Yeah, Phil. Yeah, like he had the pink. He was known for the pink. Then the Iceman short, like Chuck Liddell had the Iceman shorts.
I think the only person that got lately after this, you can't wear custom fight kits, but I think the only person that got that privilege lately is Bryce Mitchell. He got those camouflage.
Oh yeah, that's true. Arkansas
Dan
boy.
White gave him them camouflage shorts. So
Yeah, that is weird that he's like the only one that got it.
but
Arkansas.
other than that, I haven't noticed any other customizations.
Yeah, man. I wish they would bring that aspect to it back. I know Venom was giving them a lot of money, but like a lot of these fighters like cookie cutter now. They're just like pumping them out like factories now.
Yeah, there's no individuality with it. Like they all wear the same shit, man. It was cool to see what different people would be wearing. Sonnen would come out in one of his tap out American Gangster shirts and shit like that. It was fun. Little trivia though for you. Do you know the only person to piss Dana White off with what they wore to fight? Can you name who it was?
Oh man,
He wore the Speedo, right?
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
It was Dennis Hallman.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. He got real mad because of that.
Yeah, Dana White was pissed at that, and then there was one other fighter. I can't remember his last name. His name was Cody. He was on The Ultimate Fighter, and his team forgot his shorts at the hotel, so they had to go across the street to like a CVS and got him some fucking gym shorts, and he fought in gym shorts. That was a tire fuck up.
Hold on, who was that? Who did that?
I can't remember his last name. It was Cody something. He was on The Ultimate Fighter. He was the one that always used to go, woo! That's why you hear it across the crowd at every fight now, because he started doing that shit. He'd be fighting in the middle of his fight and pull a Ric Flair woo.
That's awesome.
So that's the origination with that, because I've heard that before in the crowd.
Yeah.
I thought it was just a Ric Flair thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but
you teaching me something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, they need to bring back more individuality in the sport.
My name is Steve, and I'm from Jeff City, born and raised. And how I got introduced into MMA, always been a fighting fan, whether it's video games or movies. But first it was boxing, but when I first saw my first MMA fight, I think it had to deal with Rampage, and it's when he slammed what's his name, Verona, and he picked him up and then he slammed him down. And plus, around that time, around when I was going to school, it wasn't just about fighting or knocking somebody out. I think at that time it was popular about somebody slamming somebody and saying, ooh. So when I saw Rampage do that, it was it. I was like, well, that's the complete, it's one thing you know how to box, but knowing how to wrestle too. And I'm like, that's the complete fighting. So that's my introduction, because I even saw how certain people say boxing and, that time around boxing or MMA was more superior, right? I knew the superior one was MMA. So that was my introduction. And like I said, it used to come on Spike TV. And the Rashad Evans and Rampage Jackson is really what got me hooked. And when I saw them fight, it was Buffalo Wild Wings, and actually the whole place was crazy. It was packed, and everybody had somebody who they wanted to win. I really couldn't choose, but I liked Rashad Evans. But it's funny because Rampage Jackson is one of my favorite fighters because he's my introduction into MMA. So that's my background, how I got into it.
So I remember like the hype behind that fight because I was still living in Columbia, South Carolina. I remember like them hyping it up on the radio. Like I think I was listening to the XM radio, and like Rampage was like a guest on the show. He was talking shit. He was like, I'm gonna knock him out. Like even this is like before I started watching regularly. Like I got interested in watching it after hearing that radio interview. It was when then I go to the decision. I know Rashad won that fight.
Yeah.
for as much as them dudes claim to hate each other and get into it on The Ultimate Fighter, it was a lackluster fight. Like, there wasn't anything really memorable about it. Rashad Evans pretty much took Rampage down at will. Rampage did what he does. He swung for the fences, and man, it ain't talked about a lot, but Rampage Jackson is kind of a waste of talent. He got real lazy towards the end of his UFC career and gained all that weight and just didn't look like he wanted to fight at all. When, back when he was in Pride, just killing dudes.
Yeah, he looked terrible his last fight. Was it Fedor?
Oh yeah, I think Fedor destroyed him too.
Yeah, he looked very terrible, man. Out of shape, didn't look fast at all, or nothing like his legendary self. So,
yeah, he was kind of a victim to kind of the John Jones effect, and we'll get into that a little bit later on the show. But yeah, so I kind of jumped the gun a little bit earlier, but now we'll get into favorite all-time fighter, favorite all-time fight, and favorite all-time fight card. And both of you kind of already gave us an insight on GSP and Rampage, but I'll kick it off. Favorite fighter of all time. I think it might have been a week. It was a week after that Silva fight that I talked about earlier, a week before it. But I was in the hotel. I was watching Versus. Like, I don't know if y'all remember when UFC was on Versus. Like, I think Fox 2 ended up turning into Versus. Fox Sports 2 ended up becoming what Versus was. And they're showing like back-to-back fights. They were showing the John Jones Vera fight, and then they were showing live the janitor fight, John Jones versus the janitor. And like they showed the Vera fight right before it, and he like collapsed Vera's eyes. I'm like, who's this long, lanky kid? And he was like, he was around the same age as me, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'll follow this guy since I'm like kind of brand new in the sport. And then like Admire was saying that Bader fight, he just got a title shot after that. Like, you probably won't see something like that again. Somebody getting awarded a title fight with Dana White walking into the ring.
yeah.
Then the Shogun fight, the rest was history after that. Collapsed Shogun's eye with that with that knee to the end. I mean, the rest is history. And favorite all-time fight, I think I'll have to go with the Shogun versus Dan Henderson fight, and that was a banger between two of the bigger weight classes.
The first one.
Let me be clear, the first one. The second one was not good. It was decent. The second one was decent, but it wasn't like the first one. Yeah, back and forth. Henderson throwing H-bombs the first 3 rounds and him kind of gassing out and letting Shogun getting back into it. Man, I remember that was such a banger. And favorite fight card of all time, I'll probably go with UFC 205 just because the history behind it. Even though I'm not the hugest McGregor fan, but I mean, he has star power. He draws all the eyes in. And it was the first New York card. And matter of fact, who else was on that card? Oh yeah, Tyron Woodley, back when he was like Tyron Woodley versus Wonderboy Thompson. The first fight was a banger because it ended up in a draw. The second one, not so much. And then you had Joanna Champion versus Carolina. Yoel Romero and Chris Weidman. I think that's the one where Romero caved his eye in and his dad came in the ring and was like, "That's still my boy."
Yep, that's the one.
That's still my boy.
Romero threw that knee from hell, man, and knocked Chris Weidman's head into like the 3rd row. Like, I thought he killed him, and then it was so weird what Weidman's dad did. My son's still the champ. That's my boy.
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
And then like I think Misha Tate and Raquel Pennington were the curtain jerkers. So that's my favorite all-time card. I'll pass it to you, Admire. Well,
favorite fighter, GSP. I think he is the most well-rounded fighter of all time. 2-division champ, welterweight and middleweight. He retired for 3 years, came back, beat Michael Bisping, submitted him. GSP's lost 2 fights. He avenged both of them, came back and won those pretty easily. He lost to Matt Serra and Matt Hughes and beat them both after that. There's no holes in his game. The dude is just so good at everything. The only other person I think that comes close is John Jones. If John Jones and GSP were the same size, same age, everything, that'd be just a hell of a fight. I wouldn't know what to pick on that. So definitely GSP, favorite fighter, favorite fight of all time. There's so many good ones out there. I've thought about it all week since we talked the other day. They involve Robbie Lawler. I don't think he's a great fighter, but like Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit and Robbie Lawler also, great fight. So one of those would probably be my favorite fight ever. Just, a war. And then favorite fight card, UFC 200. It was stacked. I don't think we'll ever see a card like that again. Maybe they'll do something for 300. So UFC 200 was Amanda Nunes against Miesha Tate, Brock Lesnar and Mark Hunt, Daniel Cormier and Anderson Silva, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Cain Velasquez, and Travis Brown. That was just the main card. And
Cain Velasquez is on that card?
Yeah, he fought Travis Brown and knocked him or TKO'd him.
Man, that was stacked.
That was the main card. The prelims was Juliana Pena versus Kat Zagano, Kelvin Gastelum against Johnny Hendricks, TJ Dillashaw against Rafael Assunção, and Sage Northcutt versus Enrique Martin. And then the early prelims, Joe Lozon and Diego Sanchez, Gegard Mousasi and Thiago Santos, and Jim Miller against Gomi. There's not a no name on that whole card. Like, that is stacked top to bottom.
The only thing that would have made that the perfect card, Silva still had juice at that point, but if it was the original Jones and Cormier fight at the main event, I think that's back when Jones was heavy in his Wild Boy days.
That's why I got to put Jones up there. Jones and GSP, 1A and 1B, because Jones went on one of the greatest runs while being drunk and high and just fucking off his career and was still just beating dudes up. Like, he didn't train because he wasn't worried about getting beat up.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pass it off to you, Steve.
Well, my favorite, like I said, my favorite fighter is Rampage. Now, I say that just because of personality, because there's a lot of, of course, John Jones is my favorite fighter because he's got a special category for himself. But as far as personality, I liked Rampage because it was my introduction. But like I said, not to get ahead, but there's a top three or whatever. GSP, I liked what you said because GSP was going against a lot of people, which I think he got out the game the first time because he thought he was going against a lot of people who were taking steroids. So he even took a break and came back and kind of showed that he can stay on the top of game with a champion at the time, Michael Bisping. So I give GSP some of that credit. But like I said, favorite fighter, it's kind of hard to say because it's kind of like saying your favorite superheroes. But Rampage and John Jones definitely. Favorite fight card, I can't remember specific fights all the way down, but one I do, what you mentioned, 205, I do remember that card where there's not a no name on that card. And also, like I said, that Rampage and Rashad, like you said, it was lackluster, but the anticipation was real big. And I think a lot of that was because of the Ultimate Fighter. So those are my favorite fight card.
Solid. Who else was on that Rampage and Rashad card?
I don't know, but I was in Buffalo Wild Wings entertained until all the way up until the fight. So only one I can remember is Danny Castillo and Tony Ferguson. And I remember I was upset because Danny Castillo kept on holding him down. I'm like, man, I was bored, right? Mm-hmm. And it's funny because the judges ended up giving Tony Ferguson that win, even though Castillo looked like he had a dominant fight just by laying on him. So I thought that was interesting.
Man, that was a stacked card. That was UFC 114, Evans versus Jackson, Bisping versus Dan Miller, Mike Russell versus Todd Duffy, Antonio Nogueira against Jason Brills, John Hathaway against Diego Sanchez, Dong Hyun Kim versus Amir Sadala, Efrain Escudero versus Dan Lozon, Melvin Gillard against Waylon Lowe. That is a pretty good card.
Well, then what was Ferguson in the Castillo? I might be mixing up my Buffalo Wild Wing meetups.
That happens a lot with me because I'll get drunk and then I'll forget which one it was on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Ferguson versus Castillo,
That
UFC
must-
177.
And who was main on that one?
Yeah, 177. That's like a later card. Because 200 happened in 2016, so that probably be around
77 was 2014.
Yep.
The main was TJ Dillashaw versus Joe Soto.
I remember that fight I think that's the fight where Dillashaw came out of nowhere.
Head kicked him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that fight. Yep.
And the Carolina boy, Derek Brunson, was on that card.
Derek Brunson, the
I can't
gatekeeper.
remember him fighting on that card.
And
Derek Brunson is the ultimate gatekeeper, hands down.
Oh, yeah.
For years.
Definitely, I agree with that. He was gatekeeping about a week or two ago and lost. I forgot who did he fight about a week or two ago.
It was see, we watched so many fights. Like all these fights start to run together. But it was like a Rocky. Throw the damn towel. His corner threw in the towel on him. He was getting it.
Yeah, he fought that Plessis guy.
Oh, DDP. He fought DDP. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It feels like when he knows that he's at a certain point of his endurance, he just throws everything at the kitchen sink, and then he's just tired. And he's been doing that his last few fights. So I think he needs to go to the drawing board. Plus, I think he's getting to the end of his career. I think so.
Yeah, he every time he cracks the top 5, he ends up losing. He's my age, so he just turned 38. So he's coming down to the end of his career.
It sounded like he's about to retire at the end of the fight, but maybe he'll have like another run in like PFL or Bellator. But I think he's just treading water if he stays in the UFC. Dana White's quick to cut somebody. It doesn't look like they want to fight.
Yeah.
And Derek Brunson, he made his way into UFC when they took over Strikeforce. Derek Brunson was really good in Strikeforce. He was like top 3 over there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how would you feel about yourself if like you're really good, but just not good enough to get the title, man? That would like kind of be heartbreaking.
I feel like that about a lot of fighters. I feel bad for them. Is like, they're always going to be number 2. It sucks. Like, Uriah Faber held the belt WEC forever, but like Mike Brown kicked his ass multiple times, and I just felt bad for Uriah Faber. I'm like, you're never going to be champ again because you can't beat one guy. He could clean out that whole division, but one guy he can't beat.
Yeah, that one kind of hurt my heart, man, because I was a big Faber fan, like especially the Dominic fights.
Yeah, I think you're right. He was the people's champ, and sometimes being the people's champ, it doesn't come with that championship, and I think that's what Uriah Faber went with. It's like you want him to win, and it's sort of like the situation when what happened with Jan, and when he kicked him in the face, nobody wanted to see that, for real, because Uriah's a cool dude, but I think it would have helped him out and gave him plus credentials with his camp that he runs. I think his gym. But he's one of those ones that grazed the surface and couldn't just do it.
I mean,
like DC's a perfect example. He was always number 2 behind John Jones. Like that one guy couldn't beat him.
Yeah, but at least he got a strap. He got a strap out of it. I never considered his light heavyweight title legitimate, but he legitimately got that heavyweight strap. So
he has an individual setback. Like you said, he achieved his championship belts, but his is very unique because the John Jones things, and even John Jones going up, it's like you put him in the way to not say Daniel Cormier was good, but in that time, who was the big dog, you know? And then John Jones' name comes up. So, and I think even that digs at Cormier a little bit.
You see it. You see his reaction when Jones won the other day. He looked devastated.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Jones even posted something that said, DC even threw shade, after the fight. Yeah, DC's just always going to be the bridesmaid. His he'd have the light heavyweight belt, but it has an asterisk by it.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then, even though he won the heavyweight strap, he lost he won the battle and lost the war to Stipe. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, fellas. We're gonna move on to this past weekend, the actual card, UFC 286. So before we get into where'd y'all guys watch the fight at?
Well, I watched the fight while I was at work. I'm a barber. I cut hair, so had to turn my phone on. So I had to watch periodically up and down. So that's where I was at.
All right, Admire, where'd you watch it?
I streamed it on the Discord. We have a 80 proof Discord for one of our other podcasts that we do, and a couple of us got together in there and watched it and talked through it, just bullshitted, smoke a little weed, drink some beers.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch it live because I was out and about at a birthday party, but I went back and watched it on the plug. We'll call it that. Yeah. Overall, y'all, it was an enjoyable card for y'all.
It was back and forth and up and down. I mean, there were some great fights on the undercard and stuff like that. The Justin Gaethje fight was fucking awesome. That fight of the night for sure. It did win fight of the night now that I'm looking. Gunnar Nelson, I've always been a fan of him. He got a quick submission. He's, definitely a gatekeeper in the welterweight. Other than that, there wasn't a lot of memorable stuff. The Usman Edwards fight, I thought it was pretty decent. Edwards kicked the shit out of Usman's leg. He got a point taken away and he still won. I don't know. It could have been a draw to me. I'm not a judge though.
Ask you one question. What did you think about that knee bar? Did you see that knee bar? I think in the prelims.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So so we'll get into it. So I'm gonna run down the results, and then I'm gonna run down the prelims. We won't really go over that, but I just want to run down the results, and then we'll start from the bottom of the main card and talk a little bit more about the fight. So you have Veronica Hardy defeating Julie Anna Miller by decision. You had Jay Herbert beating Ludovic Klein with draw. Joanne Wood defeated Luana Carolina by decision. Jake Hadley, Malcolm Gordon by the TKO. Christian Leroy Duncan facing Dusoko Todorovic. Sorry if I butchered that. TKO. Leron Murphy beating Gabriel Santos decision. Muhammad Malkev beating Jafiel Fijo by decision. Yanel Asmov beating Sam Patterson KO. Chris Duncan defeating Omar Morales decision. And Jack Shore defeating Makwan Amirkhani by submission. Any of those fights that y'all get to watch? Any stuck out?
I didn't watch the prelims. I just watched some of the highlights on those. From what I've seen, it was okay. It was fine.
How about you, Steve? You get to watch any of the prelims?
Not any of the prelims, but I did catch on because it came on my feed a highlight of a knee going backwards. I'm like, what is this? And it showed dude, I can't remember his name now, had his knee, and apparently the dude had his knee bent back, came back and won.
Yeah, he released a tweet. I can't remember the tweet he released. He said he would have rather die than to tap out.
I'm pretty sure he tore some ligaments.
Oh, definitely. So, two of the fights stuck out to me. It was the fight that ended in a body punch. It was the flyweights fighting. Which fight was that? It was the it wasn't the Mukhov fight. It was on the early prelims. Oh yeah, it was the Jake Haley Malcolm Gordon fight ended by body punch, and you know that doesn't happen a lot in MMA. So body punches are always fun, and also the Ashmoff and the Patterson fight. I don't even know if anybody saw like a highlight on Twitter of it where he caught the kick, gave him a right, and then gave him on the left on the way down, and then he was just beating on his head. His head was bouncing off the canvas. So those two fights stuck out to me. But let's get into the main card. So you had in the curtain jerker, you had Marvin Vettori defeating Roman Dolidze by decision. It was a pretty uneventful fight. I remember not a lot of action happening in the 3 rounds. Towards the end, they started swinging. But what are your thoughts on the fight?
It was all right until they started swinging. I mean, nothing too dramatic happened in there.
Yeah, from what I saw from when I saw and when I went back from the highlights, it seemed that Vettori was point fighting, and what's his name? He was going in with the harder shots, but Vettori came out with the Dolidze was coming in for the shots, but seemed like Vettori he seems to do that, bite on his mouth guard and go for the knockout, which he didn't do this time, point fight it, and Dolidze almost had to fight that fight, but Vettori came out with the win with some points, from what I saw.
So what do y'all think is next for Vettori? Because he's been a guy who's gotten a title shot, lost to Israel. Like, he's almost going to get into the gatekeeper status. And I'll go over some of the middleweight rankings to see what fight would make sense. So in the middleweight division, you have Israel ranked number 1. Of course, the champion, Alex, is his name slipped my face. Somebody help me. Alex Pierre is the champion. Yep, Israel, Robert Whitaker. Then Martin's at number 3. Cannonier's behind Martin, and then Paulicosta's at 5. Any of those fights make sense for Martin Vettori?
I would say yeah, because Israel, well, he's occupied right now, and even then he lost against Robert. So did Marvin or Jared Cannonier fight yet?
I have to go back and look. Cannonier just fought not too long ago.
I think I've seen Cannonier lately.
Yeah, he's fought recently.
Okay, and then Paulicosta's obviously he fought Marvin, so I think the only option for him is fighting downwards one more time, or wait it out until see who these are gonna win with these other fights.
What about Sean Strickland? Is he ranked high?
Yeah, he's 7. He's 7. He's number 7.
I was gonna say that'd be maybe a good fight. See what put them together and move them up a little bit.
I
can say that'd be a good one. Yeah.
Strickland's gonna talk all that shit before the fight and then throw those pillows of hands he calls of his.
Yeah. One more. Jared Cannonier, right? He's fought Strickland, right?
Yeah, I think they fought recently.
Yeah, I want to say he did fight Strickland recently.
So I think there's a lot of fights that have to happen before I think Marvin hasn't moved to any options of a fight yet, because he's either lost to somebody or he's in a bad spot right now.
He just might have to wait it out and see how the division plays out. We got a middleweight title fight happening next month.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on to Jennifer Maia defeated Casey O'Neill by decision. Another fight, not a lot going on. It was like karate fighting.
Yeah.
That's a lot of karate point fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Casey O'Neill was the big favorite coming into this. Like, not a lot of people gave Jennifer Maia a chance, and Casey O'Neill kind of shit the bed.
When we put our picks in, I picked Casey O'Neill, and she lost.
I picked her as well. Jennifer Myers kind of in that spot again. Like, what does she do from here? She already got a title fight, but she got a title fight against Valentina back when Valentina had the belt. Now we got a new champion, Alexa Grasso. You think Jennifer Myers can maybe sneak her way back into the title contention?
She can, but she'll lose again.
I agree.
Valentina would smoke her again.
Even Grasso, I think, probably get her. So, and Jennifer Myers no spring chicken. I think she's like 34, which is not old, but flyweight is kind of a tougher division. It's not strawweight, but it's more deeper. It's deeper than bantamweight though.
That's what I was gonna say. Maybe she could put on some weight or drop some weight, maybe move up or down and try something new.
Like bantamweight's not that deep, but look, you got a monster at the top of the bantamweight division. Like I don't see Nunes losing again for some reason.
Yeah, she's a beast.
And speaking of women, what is the average? Because I know about the men's, but what is the average based off statistics? Does a woman retire and in the UFC?
I don't know.
Is it lesser than a man since just biologically, or?
I don't know if you could look that up real quick. Like, what's the average retirement age of a woman in the UFC?
Because I can't think of any older women that are champions in their or getting close to the 40s. If you get what I'm saying.
I mean,
off top of my head.
Holly Holm's fighting this weekend. She's probably always a title shot. I mean, one fight away from a title shot because the division's so shallow.
That is true. Yeah.
That's like a pretty specific statistics. I don't know if you'd be able to find that, am I?
Yeah, I just can't think of any older women, you know what I'm saying, that's, like reigning champions that are older as men, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. It might be some science behind that, but I don't want us to get canceled, so don't quote us on that.
Oh, no, not at all. I didn't even mean on that aspect. I was just, how long, have they been compared to the men's,
I'm just busting balls a little bit.
It gives an average. It says the average MMA fighter retires between 35 and 40. The oldest female MMA fighter that I can think of that's still active, I think she's still active, is fucking Cyborg. She's a year younger than me, so she's 37.
Yeah. Holly Holm is like 41, I think.
I actually got a pop-up earlier that I think Holly Holm re-signed with the UFC today.
She's fighting this weekend.
I think she's got a fight coming up.
Yeah, this weekend.
She just, yesterday, she signed a 6-fight deal to stay in the UFC.
Wow, I don't think she's going to make it to the end of that. She's 41.
She's got some miles on her.
Yeah, she does. And I don't think her last fight, I don't think it was dominant, was it?
No,
I remember she had a good fight to where this is the first time I actually seen her going in and punching and going for the kill, but I just can't remember any of her recent fights.
Recently she lost to Ketlin Vieira.
That's right.
Okay, I remember that.
Irene Aldana.
I remember that.
Raquel Pennington. And then before that, she lost to Amanda Nunes.
Yeah.
So,
Chris Cyborg's up to. I wonder if Cyborg and Holly Holm would.
She's just Cyborg's just meddling around in Bellator. Like, I don't know. They had that weird contract back.
Yeah, she got that on lockdown. Bellator.
If UFC was smart, and I know they have some smart people in there, they would strip Amanda Nunes of the featherweight title. Let Holly Holm, like in her last run, like do like a vacant title fight with somebody else and actually build a division because featherweight doesn't exist, but there's still a featherweight champion and Amanda's not really defending it regularly. Let them build it up and then try to bring in Kayla Harrison from PFL and to carry that division into the future because Kayla always says she doesn't want to cut down to 135. And 155 doesn't exist. That's what she's fighting in PFL. So that's what I would do from a marketing standpoint.
Wow.
On to the next one. We had Gunnar Nelson defeating Brian Barberini by submission, armbar. Yeah, at first it was like a little boring, but then Gunnar got that takedown and submitted him. What do y'all think about the fight?
Yeah, Gunnar Nelson, I like him. I've always been a fan of his. I think I've seen every UFC fight that he's been in, and he's got a great ground game. he runs with kind of McGregor in that camp, but he's not really in that camp. As you can tell by his fight style, he can fight on the ground. McGregor can't. So, it was okay. Brian Barberena, he's been around a while. He's a pretty experienced fighter, more of a stand-up guy. He'll probably get knocked way down the rankings. Gunnar Nelson he's a gatekeeper.
Well, from what I saw, he's got to win after I think he's been losing his last ones. And I think he's been losing them because I think he may have been infatuated in the McGregor era. So he was kind of bouncing around and he would get caught in his past fights, trying to engage in that striking. But this time he played it smart. I saw he engaged, played like he wanted to strike, got him in the clinch, and waited for opportunity to take him down and capitalize. Like he said, he's a ground game, and that's more of his expertise. And like I said, he took advantage of it.
Dude, I'm looking at Gunnar Nelson's record right now. His losses are Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, Damian Maia, and Rick Story.
Those are actually top people.
Yeah.
Especially those top 3 ones.
The champion, lost to the champion. What do y'all see? Well, Anmeyer kind of touched on it, but Steve, where you see Gunnar Nelson ceiling at this point? Because he's no spring chicken. I think he's like 34.
Yeah, and I think his rank, if I'm not, I may be wrong, I think his rank is 24 right now. So I think he's got a way ahead of him, get a few wins up there. And like I said, he's only lost to, like I said, those top people. But then again, those are top people. And I think there's a certain ceiling maybe he can't go over for him to be, where he is right now. Because he was advertised as a good grappler and everything. He had a good go with the UFC until his latter losses. And now I think he's just a floating name that if you're a UFC fan, you would know of him. But I don't think a casual would know who a Gunnar Nelson is.
I'd like to see Gunnar Nelson fight Michael Chiesa. That would be a good
That would be a good fight. Definitely.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't mind seeing that fight. All right, so now we move on to the co-main event. Boy, was this a banger.
Yes, it was.
We had Justin Gaethje defeating my notes.
It was
Rafael Fiziev decision. But when sometimes you think of decisions, you think it might have been a boring fight. This was not a boring fight. Justin to highlight Gaethje and Fiziev was just pure violence. Like, his nickname should be Justin Violence Gaethje instead of the highlight, because this man never puts on a dull fight. Man, this might be in contention for fight of the year, early fight of the year. What do y'all guys think?
Yeah, Justin Gaethje, I mean, he throws a bomb. Like, he doesn't throw soft touch punches or anything like that. He just wings them, whether it's an uppercut or a, overhand right. He fucked that dude's face up. But when it came down to it and it ended, I really thought, Fiziev won. I thought that he was more technical. Gaethje landed more, definitely caused more damage from looking. But, I think Gaethje got rocked once or twice in it. It was a good fight. I'd like to see him run it again.
Yes, the Fiziev and Gaethje fight, from what I saw, like I said, it was a war. Didn't see a difference on why Gaethje might have messed Fiziev up until later in the fight, or in the beginning of the fight. I didn't realize Gaethje was that much of a body size bigger than Fiziev. So I think that would made a big difference on damage. Although Fiziev, I was going for him at first because he'd be throwing those crisp kickboxing and Muay Thai combinations. I thought he would edge him out because he seemed to be a lot quicker with those, like I said, combinations. But Gaethje comes through, man, and with his I think one of his favorite punches, that almost like a corkscrew uppercut, slip and uppercut, and then that
Right
tore him
between
up.
the heart.
Yeah. And like I said, I think the reason why Fiziev may have lost was because of Gaethje may have a bigger body size. And like I said, styles make fights, and I think Gaethje also has some tools under his sleeve as far as throwing those bombs and slipping and countering like he does, like he's controlled chaos instead of going in there like a bobblehead getting hit. So I think Gaethje's got some promise, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he may have gotten a call out, Dustin Poirier. So I think that is a fight that may be very important on his legacy before he gets a title shot.
He called out Poirier.
Poirier called out him, I think.
Man, part 2, huh? That first
Yeah.
fight was a banger, and
It
both
was.
of them kind of leveled up since then. So I wouldn't mind seeing them run that back.
Yeah,
Definitely.
good rematch.
And you know what else jumped off the page for me? Fiziev's hand speed, man. Like he was quick. He caught him with some good shots at the end of the first round and then the beginning of the second round. Like I think the fight could have went either way. Like Admire said, he thought Fiziev won. I thought Gaethje edged him out, but like if they would have called Fiziev the winner, like I couldn't really argue against that. It was that tight of a fight.
I think the factor was the damage. I think that plays a lot in the judges' eyes, whether they admit it or not. And as a person, look at it. You kind of got to give, if you want to go off the points, yeah, it could have been. But if you want looking at the fight, like, that the Gaethje, he tore his face up, But that's how I look at it.
Yeah, if the Poirier fight doesn't happen, any other matchups y'all would like to see Gaethje have?
I'd like to see Gaethje fight the winner of McGregor and Michael Chandler. We've seen Chandler and Gaethje run it before. I'd like to see that one again. I think Gaethje and McGregor, if McGregor ends up winning, it could be a good fight. Gaethje's the type that, he's not going to take Conor down just because he knows he can. He wants to prove that he can stand with him. So it's going to be a banger. I mean, they're just going to stand and trade.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, you just took the words out of my mouth. If Conor wins, you got to set up that him and Gaethje. But that might be a tall task for Conor because he's out there selling whiskey and not worrying about fighting, and he's making Roadhouse movies. So we'll see. This next fight will be telling for Conor. See how focused he is, because Chandler is a warrior, but he's beatable. So
Yeah.
if you can't beat Chandler, then I don't know. Like, might be it for Conor. But now we will move on to the main event. Leon Edwards defeats Kamaru Usman, majority decision. Man, I had kind of mixed feelings about this fight because it was more like a technical fight, and then Usman, Edwards got points taken off for that foul.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a draw. But what are y'all impressions on the fight?
Yeah, I thought it would have been a draw. It was weird. Every round was so different in that fight. Like Usman, you could tell he was kind of scared because he lost to a head kick last time, and he was kind of weary of that, and he didn't really let go or charge like he normally does and take his opportunities. He was kind of hesitant on that. Edwards kicked the shit out of his leg, kicked him in the balls a couple times, I think. Like you said, he got the point taken away for grabbing the fence. That fight, that could have changed things. If Usman would have got on top of him and he didn't grab the fence, that could have been over. Because, watching the fight live, I thought Usman was way bigger than Edwards. I don't know if it's because they were moving, but after the fight, when they were side by side, they ended up, looking the same size. But I think if Usman would have got on top of him against the cage, it would have been over.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Like I said, I think Usman came in with a different mentality because of that last knockout. But saying that, I give Edwards credit because he defended a lot of takedowns. You could tell he did his homework, and if you can compare the first two fights, you can tell that he has an upgrade in his repertoire now, and I think kind of conquered the Kamaru saga, even though it was a close fight. He was kicking his legs, the body kicks made a big difference in the fight to where I don't think Kamaru hit him with anything significant as far as we talk about damage. I feel like he didn't attack a certain area to even have a conversation about, oh, he was, no, we were talking about Edwards kicking him in the legs and attacking his body. So I can see how people give him to Edwards, and plus he's the champion. And if you don't win by a large margin trying to fight the champion, then it's either a coin toss or they're going to give it to the champion if it's not a marginal win.
Yeah, the reason I thought it was a draw is because third, the turn taken away, that would have been the 10-8 round. Then I gave Usman the fourth round, but two of the judges didn't give Usman the first round. I thought he won it pretty decisively, but I'm not a judge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the other day we had the scorecard pulled up and we were looking at it, and some of it just didn't even make sense.
Mm-hmm.
The 9-9 round where they called that round a draw.
Yeah, that didn't make sense. That should have been a 10-8 round. But we all know how the judging works. So, like we were kind of talking about, this fight didn't go without having controversy. This was reported by MMA Mania. They kept track of all the fouls, and all of them except one have been by Edwards. So let me name this off. So Edwards had 3 glove grabs, 1 glove grab from Usman. That's the only foul that Usman did. 5 low blows from Edwards, 2 eye pokes from Edwards, and 2 fence grabs from Edwards. So with all that being said, does this take away from Edwards' win? Like, kind of tarnishes a legacy a little bit to know that he had all those fouls?
I don't think so, because it happens in almost every fight. It just doesn't get called every time. But I don't think that takes away from Edwards. I think the biggest thing that takes away from Edwards still was like 3 or 4 fights ago for him. He got rocked by Nate Diaz, who has fucking pillow fists. That takes away from him.
Yeah, Diaz has always been a volume guy, not a power guy. But what do you think about those fouls, Steve?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it would tarnish his legacy, because when you look at somebody's record, especially if you're not a fighter of John Jones or a significant foul, it's going to be remembered as a win. It might go on his fighter profile, so to speak, on people. But other than that, I don't think it's going to tarnish him. Like I said, being a champion, sometimes you have that perk of seeing if you're defeatable or not, or like John Jones haven't showed a sign of weakness. So when, like he said, Nate Diaz hit Leon with those pillow hands, it's it kind of leaves him susceptible to whose possibilities coming up next, who can hurt him. That's what I think about. That's what I think about that. I don't think it's going to tarnish his record.
I'm going to change my stance. It does tarnish it, kind of, because in my mind, in 10 years, if you ask me, hey, do you remember when Usman and Edwards 2 happened? My first thought's going to be, that's the fight that Edwards fucking grabbed the fence and he was going to get taken down and beat, but he ended up winning. That's what I'm going to remember about that fight. So that's why I can say it kind of does tarnish his legacy.
I can say if he has a fall from now, I can see that happening. If he loses from now. But if he keeps on winning, I think people might forget about it.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not going to keep winning because he's got Colby Covington next.
Well, you kind of segued into my next point. So before the blood was even dried off the canvas, Dana White in a post-fight conference, he said Colby Covington's got the next opportunity. So what do y'all think about that? Colby Covington coming off of 2 losses in a Masvidal win, is he really deserving of this title shot?
No, he's not deserving of it, but he's going to sell fucking tickets and sell pay-per-views. Like, it's going to be a good shit talk from him. And Colby Covington's one of those fighters. Either you love him or hate him. You're either tuning in to see him win or you're tuning in to see him get his ass kicked. He's playing that character right. Does he deserve it? No.
And what do you think, Steve?
What I think, like I said, he's had 1 wins off of those out of the 3, the 2 losses. I mean, we got at number 3, we got Kamzat right behind him. And then Gilbert's number 5. So we got to wait till Gilbert and Masvidal fight. Masvidal already fought Colby. I think the UFC is maybe putting one in the chamber so Masvidal and Leon can fight. But then again, they'll say Masvidal, won't deserve it even after this fight. But like I said, me looking at the rankings and seeing who deserves it, if who wins, Gilbert lost to Kamaru. Kamaru just lost. He's about to fight Masvidal. So I think at this point it wouldn't matter. Just the stipulations on who's behind him and who's he already fought. I'll go for Colby fighting. I wouldn't mind. Like you said, there's views. And not only that, the people behind him, the only person that maybe, and not even him deserve a shot, is Kazmat, because he hasn't fought that many people. And he's number 3. So I think it's a coin toss just based off of who's in the rankings right now. And Bilal is number 4. So if you wanted to see him fight, and nobody, I'm not saying nobody wants to see him fight, but I don't think he has popularity as Colby.
I think Colby and Kazmat would be a great fight just because of the ground game that they both have. That would be awesome. I mean, I mentioned it the other day. I think that what we're going to end up with is you're going to have Colby, Usman, and Edwards as the top 3. And we're going to see them 3 fighting and taking the belt back and forth for a while because I don't think there's anybody else. Kazmat maybe get in there, but I think we're going to have a blockage at that weight class. It's just there's the top 3-4 guys are so far ahead of the rest. Like Masvidal, love watching him fight. He fights his ass off every time, but he's just not a top championship level fighter.
So we don't forget about number 6 is Shagvat, the one who just beat
Jeff Neal.
Jeff Neal. So that throw him in the mix too.
But then didn't Dana White say, and we all know Dana White never goes back on his word, and I'm saying this in quotation mark, that Chimaev would never fight at welterweight again after missing weight?
Yeah, he did say that.
That is true. But he does still have him on the rankings, but I think he is going up to middleweight.
But I'd like to see him fight Colby. See who has the better grappling game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. How bad did Kazmat miss weight by? Wasn't it like 8 pounds?
It was bad. It was bad. It was like 8 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Diaz got a gift on that one. Right. He's gonna get ragdoll. But so where do y'all see Usman going from here? Because he said he doesn't want to retire, and he was nipping on the heels at GSP before he had these 2 losses to Edwards. So where do y'all see Usman going from here?
I mentioned it. I want to see him move up, but he's already said that he won't. He don't want to fight Izzy. I think he would do good at 185.
I would say Usman. Plus, if you notice the pattern with UFC, once you get 2 title fights and you don't achieve the deal, they throw you in the back, and you got to fight your way up 4 or 5 fights. I see him either fighting a lot, 3 or 4 fights, until he gets back into title contention. Or like I said, he'll go over to 185, and I think he'll do good. But when you get to those bigger body mass middleweights, like Pierre, where they start looking like light heavies, he'll start having problems. So I think he has some decisions to make.
I don't know.
Usman needs to get back in the gym and get rid of that hesitation that he has now. He needs to go back to his old ways before Edwards knocked him out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he brought the fight to Edwards in their second fight. One's not this third fight, the second fight they had where he had head kick. But he just got caught sleeping like with a minute left for some reason.
Right. Usman didn't look the same the other night.
Yeah, he didn't look the same this fight. So he might have to, go back to the drawing board. He has a hell of a camp out there in Colorado. I don't know if he would fare well in middleweight though. You got some big fellas in middleweight that could possibly fight a heavyweight.
Yeah.
But look at GSP. I mean, he fought Michael Bisping. That Bisping, I think when he originally started fighting was a light heavy. And GSP is average welterweight.
Yeah. You never know, but that'll do it for the pay-per-view recap. And Admire kind of touched on it just now. After UFC 285 that happened early this month, a lot of debate around who's the greatest of all time. And me personally, I think John Jones put that to bed. He treated Cyril Gane like he was a novice that he didn't even touch an MMA ring before and beat him in like 2 minutes. So I think that ends all chatter. But you gonna make your case for GSP though, Admire?
No, I can't deny John Jones, greatest fighter active right now for sure. GSP and John Jones, 1A and 1B, they can be switched any day. I'm starting to lean more towards John Jones just because he is active in the now and we're getting to see him fight. He makes good fighters look average. It's hard, especially when he cleaned out light heavy and now he's going up to heavy to do it. Unfortunately, we're not going to get the real fight that we all wanted, the John Jones and Francis Ngannou.
Yeah. I agree.
Is John Jones your GOAT, Steve?
He definitely is. He's on the top of the I shouldn't say Mount Rushmore. He's on the top of the Mortal Kombat buildings. He's the boss. You have to go all the way to the top to fight him statistically. And although GSP is my dude, 27-1, where that John Jones gets the perk of being so dominant, we can remember, which other pro fighters don't have the privilege, we can remember that loss really isn't a loss. Versus GSP 26-2, it's kind of harder to remember those two losses, you know what I'm saying, for a regular casual fan, to who he lost to. I mean, we even know John Jones, who he got that loss to a lot of people would call nobody now. I'm Matt Hamill. So John Jones is the GOAT. And not only that, if people were to see him fight, he's done it in dominant fashion. He's almost like he had death row his whole MMA career. You know what I'm saying? To where other people have little debates on not having that many that much adversity before they got to the championship. Hands down, John Jones has just went through a tear, even through championships across other
generations.
Disciplines.
Oh yeah, generations and disciplines.
Other generations and disciplines. And like I said, John Jones is my GOAT, and I have to give my hats off to him.
And that's kind of a good segue because I'm gonna list off all of John Jones's champions. This is just his championship fights once he beat Shogun. So he beat Shogun, then he beat Rampage by submission, that brutal submission. Lyoto Machida threw him down like a sack of potatoes. Beat Rashad Evans in a blood feud. Vitor Belfort by submission. Chael Sonnen and TKO. Gustafsson, one of the greatest fights of all time. Glover Teixeira when Glover looked like a unbeatable world beater. Daniel Cormier, one of the best Olympic wrestlers of all time. OSP, which was a lackluster fight, but he was just coming off that suspension. Daniel Cormier head kicked him. Gustafsson finished him after having that drag out war the first time. Anthony Smith, it was an okay fight. He dominated it, and he had that foul. Santos, I think, like, if some people say that He lost the fight to Reyes, but I think if any fight he would have been lost, it would have been the Santos fight. But he won the fight. He beat Reyes. A lot of people said he lost that fight. I think he won it pretty decisively, won 3 rounds. And then Cyril gone in 1 round. So you could split that in half, and 2 of those are like Hall of Fame careers. Like, so how could you deny John Jones? And I love GSP myself, but he had the Hughes loss. But that Hughes loss happened early on in GSP's career. But how could you get past that, getting knocked out by Matt Serra, though?
Yeah.
That's bad. That's bad. Coming off a reality show. Matt Serra
though. Fucking hit hard. Matt Serra could hit. And Matt Serra's highly decorated jiu-jitsu master. He caught GSP slipping. I mean, no excuses.
And GSP did avenge that loss immediately. But then, like, people forget the second half of GSP's career. They were kind of snoozers, man. Like, I haven't really seen a boring John Jones fight except maybe the OSP fight.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, that Hendricks fight, I thought he lost the Hendricks fight. Look at his face afterwards.
Yeah. That was the first time that I was like, okay, he lost. And then they read the cards, and I was like, no way. And I think what happened in the Hendricks GSP fight is the commentators rode GSP's jock so hard that the commentary had me believing that GSP was winning. But what I was seeing was GSP get his ass kicked.
Yeah. I would say the only credit I'll give to GSP to that, around the era before Fertitas gave it up and that USADA came in, I think a lot of fighters were juicing, and I think Johnny Hendricks was one of those fighters, because as soon as USADA came, downhill, Johnny Hendricks went. And that's why I think after that fight, GSP left the UFC, because he knew it. I was like, GSP was like, I know I work hard and I'm a workhouse. How's this dude keeping up with the pace? And he decided to take a break until they clear that out. And that's why I'll give him his credit for that.
And also GSP, I'm not going to take credit away from him from going up, but he did kind of cherry pick that title fight with Michael Bisping. If Yoel had the belt, you think GSP would have came back?
I don't think so,
man. Dude. I don't know. I don't know anybody that would fight Yoel Romero. Like, that dude's a fucking freak of nature. He is a beast.
Yeah. GSP is, though, one of the greatest. Can't take that away from him.
So, what's next for Jones?
Stipe.
You think that?
It's the only option, but I think that only option just shows how John Jones, how great he is. Now, anything can happen in MMA, but I think he's going to go right through him.
All right. So let me give you some names at the top of the heavyweight, and let's see if you think any of them would give John Jones a problem. So John Jones, of course, number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think John Jones has a problem.
Hold up. Are we talking about heavyweight? Or are we talking about the pound for pound list?
Oh wait, did I click on the pound for pound?
Yeah. Volkanovski is the featherweight champion.
You talking about Volkov?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Are you talking about Volkov?
So number 2 is Stipe.
He'll go through him.
Number 3 is Sergey Pavlovich.
He'll go through him.
Or Curtis Blades.
That he would give him Fitz. That's the only one I can see giving him Fitz. So?
I think just because Curtis Blades has such good takedown defense that it could give problems, and it stays on the feet, and then being a natural heavyweight, he's got more power.
He's Curtis Blades is the only other wrestler in the division, and he's like a high level wrestler. That's the only one I can see Jones giving Fitz. Go Aspinall's still green.
I was gonna say there's nobody in the heavyweight top 15 that really, other than Curtis Blades and Stipe.
Didn't Aspinall getting injured?
Yeah, that's how he lost to Blades. He just got injured his knee in the first round. But I think Aspinall, they're trying to build him up as because he's a younger heavyweight, and heavyweight it's almost like a wasteland because it's old and not as competitive as divisions. But like Amar said, I don't think it's really anybody. Stipe on paper, of course, his credential would say that he could keep up with Jones, but it's a 40-year-old Stipe that came off of 3 wars with Cormier. I think he's not going to be like the Stipe that we know.
Is he 40?
Yeah, Stipe's 40. I think he's about to be 41 soon.
He's going to be 41 in August, but I've always been a fan of Stipe. He's not good at any one thing. He's, between mediocre and good at everything. He's got great takedown defense. He can take down a lot of people. His boxing is good. Hits hard as shit. But DC tested that jaw, and I don't know. I don't know if his jaw is soft or if that was just a hard punch, because he went down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's going to be interesting. John Jones definitely adds a new life to the division, so we'll have to see how it shakes out. And so we're going to wrap up the show with our individual pound-for-pound rankings and fight of the month picks. So with these pound-for-pound rankings, we're not going to do this every month, but we'll do it once in a while, once it gets shaken up, because it'll get redundant doing it every month. But since this is our premiere show, I wanted to go through to see who our individual top 5 pound-for-pound are. And I'll just let everybody do their number all in one, and we'll go together and do our number 5s and our number 3s, our number 2s, number 1s. And I'll kick it off with my number 5, because I didn't discriminate on women. I got women in my top 5. I got Amanda Nunes, my number 5, pound for pound. She had that one hiccup against Juliana Pena, but she's still a double champ. And I think she's, back on top. Nobody is going to be able to touch her in the foreseeable future. That's my number 5. Who you have at number 5, Amar?
Yeah, I'll put Nunez there too. I mean, she's still just scary as fuck.
As far as like you said, I actually had my number 5 empty because I couldn't decide.
Mm-hmm.
But since you said that, her dominance, and as far as dominant female fighter, she also belongs in the top 5. So I'll put her at my 5.
My number 4, some people have him higher, but I have him at number 4, Alexander Volkanovski. I mean, I've never been the biggest fan of him because I thought Holloway won the first 2 fights, but he shut me up because he beat him decisively that 3rd fight. But he's coming off a loss. He dared to be great, and he came up short against Islam, but he's still a hell of a fighter, even though he's not my personal taste in fights. But I have him at number 4. Who you got in your number 4 slot, Amar?
Number 4, I'm going to go outside of the UFC. Number 4, I'm going Ryan Bader.
Ooh.
Current Bellator heavyweight champ, just beat Fedor. Fedor is old and falling off, but Ryan Bader, he's got some good, wins on his record. Here's his last 3 fights. Fedor, Czech Congo, and Moldovsky, all at heavyweight. He's beat Machida. He beat Fedor twice. Matt Mitrione. He beat King Mo Lawal. Beat Phil Davis that we talked about earlier. He's beat Nogueira. I don't think Bader would have the same success in the UFC if he came back, but right now he's riding a good win streak in some pretty big names.
Man, I like how you thought outside the box, man, because Bader's kind of.
My bad. I was gonna ask you. I wasn't sure if it was UFC out of the list. I went outside of the UFC list myself.
Yeah, it's all promotions. It doesn't have to be UFC.
Okay. My number 4 is actually Demetrius Johnson.
Ooh, that's a good one, man.
He's in 1. He's still competing. Doing new other outside of MMA, like a 1-round MMA or 1-round Muay Thai. Then 2nd round MMA, winning fights, and outside in the UFC had a questionable loss with Henry Cejudo, and many feel like he done enough to win that. Still dominant outside to where you can arguably one of the best organizations running up with UFC. So I would have to give Demetrius Johnson that number 4, my number 4 spot as the pound for pound.
That's a good pick. That's a good one. A lot of people don't know the reason he left the UFC was because he was too dominant and he made those fights look boring. He was just kicking everybody's ass. And I think Dana White made a trade with him for Eddie Alvarez to get Eddie Alvarez to the UFC.
It was Ben Askren.
Or was it Askren?
It was Ben
Askren.
Askren.
Right, it was Askren.
First and last trade in MMA history. I don't think it's happened since then. But yeah, Mighty Mouse is not in a lot of people's GOAT conversations, but he's definitely probably sneaks in my top 5 of all time. So I definitely like that pick. At number 3, I have Mr. Aljamain Funkmaster Sterling. After he got head kicked by Marlon Moraes, he's gone on a streak. I think he's on an 8-fight winning streak. And on that pathway, he's gotten Sandhagen, Peter twice, even though one was DQ. Destroyed Dillashaw's dumbass. He came in a fight with an injury, but that's his own fault. He's got a big one coming up with Henry Cejudo. I got Funkmaster number 3. What you say you admire?
I got Israel Adesanya. I think he's still up there. Even though he took the loss to Pereira, I think Izzy was so dominant forever. I think he still holds a spot up there.
I'm not mad at that pick. It's a big one for him next month. He might fall down your ranking if he gets beat again by Pierre.
Yeah.
Well, my number 3 in the pound for pound, it's so crazy because you can go off many factors. If you're in heavyweight, well, of course you can knock down all those other pounds below you. Or if you are a middleweight and if you actually fought in welterweight or light heavy to show proof of pound for pound, back and forth. And I think I factor in that way. And I can say, since he's coming back, and a lot of people don't like him, but I like what he's doing. I'll give, and I have to look up his record's pretty high, Henry Cejudo. And I know a lot of people ain't gonna like that, but I'll give Henry Cejudo my number 3 spot because he surprised me with those 2 wins. Not only flyweight, went up to bantamweight, and he comes back and does something in featherweight. I don't think any champions went across 3 weight classes and won a belt, let alone 2. So I think Henry Cejudo, that's why he's coming back. It's the thing to complete his chapter.
He's a great fighter. I followed his whole career, and I think he retired because he got bored. I mean, he was just beating everybody.
Well, he's about to prove something in this upcoming fight. This fight against Sterling is going to be a showing proof for both of them to see where they fall at on the pound for pound rankings. But I like that pick. My number 2 pick, even though I feel like his strength of schedule isn't all the way there, but I mean, you only can fight the people that they give him. I got Islam Makhachev at number 2, Habib 2.0. He beat the pound for pound guy at the time, Volkanovski, in that fight. Pretty good fight. I like to see him step it up in these next couple fights, but since he's got the belt now, they got to give him some higher competition. But I feel like these next 3 or 4 fights will be telling on, my viewing of him. For what it's worth. Who you got to admire?
Yep, I also have Islam Makhachev up there for that one. Pretty much same reasons. He's very dominant. He's never been in trouble. He's Khabib 2.0. Like you said, his record, he hasn't fought all the big names and everybody. He moved up very quick. We're going to have to see what he does with his next ones, but right now, he's just never been in trouble. Pound for pound, he would dominate across the board.
Definitely. Like I said, I had my number 2 blank, but since y'all mentioned that, I would give Islam that spot too. But a confirmed number 2, I wouldn't. He would have to get, I would say, who's next in line with Islam again?
Islam, let's see, the lightweight rankings. We have Charles Oliveira at number 1. Islam the champion, and you got Charles at number 1, Dustin Poirier 2, Gaethje 3, Dariush 4, Chandler 5, Bizet 6.
Yeah, I can say he can definitely be. He has to get those. I would say 1 or 2 dominant championship wins to be definitely considered and hold down that number 2 spot.
And everybody you just named that's ranked high at lightweight, the only person on that list that could even stand or do anything with him would be Michael Chandler, because Michael Chandler's a great wrestler. Everybody else is going to get ragdolled by him.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an intriguing fight, but then who did Chandler lose in that title fight? Was it an interim fight? It was Gaethje. Okay. Yeah, so that would be like a good stylistic matchup, Chandler and Islam. I'd like to see that happen, but it's gonna be telling this Chandler McGregor fight. Whoever loses that fight is gonna fall from glory and probably not get like.
Yeah, and I mean Poirier's got a little bit of wrestling, but he's not got anything that Islam can't handle.
Yeah, we saw what happened. They haven't fought yet. I'm mixing Habib and Poirier up.
And Poirier, yeah, it's two. I was like, wait, they already fought. Wait, no,
they hadn't fought yet. Only one he hasn't fought in a legit lightweight except Oliveira. Like as far as like his championship run, and that was to get the fighter. That's the only one he has fought. Islam has fought. It's Oliveira basically.
Like and I think who's fighting. Who's fighting in Charles is Benil, and I think that's the only trump card that you can throw out there that possibly can do something with him. But but Benil doesn't have a strong enough record to be even on statistically to be formidable for Islam. But like I said, like you said, you feel like they would ragdoll all those people, and if anybody does have a chance, I think it may be Benil, but that's just a throw in the dark. So, like you said, Islam's pretty dominant. It looks like his high hopes for his career as far as people that are lined up in his way.
Well, they definitely got a fresh set of contenders for him because, like I said earlier, I thought he's fought Poirier, but that was Habib. He could fight all the people that Habib went to, really show and prove. I love to see him face Poirier, though, even though we know how it probably turned out. But Gaethje, him fighting Gaethje as well.
But I'm so afraid that McGregor's going to somehow beat Chandler. I don't want to see McGregor against Islam. Like
it's gonna happen if he beats Chandler.
I think there's a good chance McGregor might win. He doesn't have a lot of head movement, Chandler, and I feel like he has a straight left down the pipe if he doesn't use his head movement.
Chandler is exciting, but he's definitely beatable, so it can't happen. And mark my words, if he beats Chandler, Dana White is licking his chops. They're gonna put him in Islam. Title fight after that.
I don't want.
And it's gonna be trash.
I'll watch, but I don't want it, man. It's just it would be the same thing as when McGregor fought Khabib, but worse. I mean, it's just gonna be an instant takedown, ground and pound, and then lock him up from the rear.
Look what Poirier did to McGregor with the ground game. And Poirier, he's good ground game and grappler, but he's no Islam.
Yeah, exactly. McGregor should have spent the last 10 years working on his ground game. I mean, he got exposed early in his career. I think Chad Mendez took him down. His first fight in the UFC, I can't remember that guy's name.
Was it the black guy? I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
Marcus
Brimage.
Yeah, Brimage. Yeah, Marcus.
There you
Marcus
go.
Brimage. Yeah.
So McGregor should have been working on his ground game for a long time, and he just has, his bread and butter standing up. But
I think he fell in love with that takedown defense, staying on his feet, but not,
actually
working with the ground game at all. I think he has very good takedown defense, but when he gets taken down, it's like he's in a whole nother world. It's hard for him to get up.
I mean, like sometimes you're a product of like being around yes men. I feel like he's around yes people who tell him that he's great at everything. You got to get out of your camp when you know you're lacking in one department. You got to go around and go to other camps and like get specialists. I think he's just staying in this bubble over there in Ireland with his coach.
I think he's a big fish in a small pond.
Exactly.
down there.
That's exactly how you describe it. But I mean, he's making $100 million, so he's doing something right. So.
Yeah, he did better than me.
Exactly. So I think we probably all have consensus same number ones, and I don't know if we even gotta say it. John Jones ran through the number one contender at heavyweight, something that the previous champion had trouble struggling with. Like was a leg lock attempt away from losing that fight.
Yeah.
And John Jones just cut through him like a hot knife through butter. So I think we're all in agreement that Mr. Jones is number one on all our lists.
Like we just talked about, I mean, there isn't a lot of heavyweight for Jones. I don't know. Maybe he plans on going back down. I don't know what he wants to do. I mean, he could be dominant at heavyweight if he wants to, but he seems to have a new drive to him. I don't know. Like, I didn't like the cocky John Jones and the troublemaker John Jones, but I always like a comeback story, and I think that's where he's at in his career, you know, ready to settle down and straighten up. So I'm ready to see him win.
If he goes through Stipe, I think he retires. Like, he's not going to stick around and fight Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. Those fights, I don't think those fights intrigue him. I think he retires until, like, maybe if Francis comes back. He'll come back. He might go to GSP route, come back for a big fight. But, like, why is he going to meddle around and possibly get knocked out by a lucky punch or something?
Right. Yeah, that's true. It's always a risk. You know, them heavyweight guys, they all throw hard, but John Jones can avoid that.
You think he retires, Steve, after the Stipe fight?
I would say so, because anybody after Stipe doesn't for real have lineage. And sometimes
they don't have the names.
Yeah. And sometimes being an observer, you don't think of it, but I can imagine the longer you are a champion, the longer you knock down dudes. And the longer you knock down dudes, the more new dudes that don't have a goddamn name but may have deserved their shot. So you gotta play chess on, do you want these dudes to make a name off me off of, like you said, a lucky punch? So you have to make your MMA career more prestige or harder to get to or draw the card. And I think John Jones made a amazing move, especially whether he likes it or not, being Daniel Cormier's shadow. And it's all this is gonna be a stepping stone to knock out Stipe or whatever, how he takes him out, and then there's nobody left. Then right off in the sunset. I think that's what he's gonna do.
I just had a wild thought. So we're 14 cards away from UFC 300. UFC 100 was huge. 200 was huge. They're definitely going to do something big for 300. Think they'll do John Jones at 300?
I think that's what they would like to do. But they're shooting for the Stipe fight this summer, so he probably might go away until 300, to be honest.
Think about it. After Stipe, what? And he said Ngannou ain't coming back, Dana. So
he says
after
that.
Stipe, who is gonna draw even if John Jones is fighting? As far as like making pay-per-views or even I think it stagnates at Stipe.
No, like this is even a wild fight, a wild thought. He might not even fight at heavyweight again after beating Stipe. Like he might wait and like maybe let Jamal Hill build his name up and do like a champion versus champion title fight back at light heavyweight.
I forgot about that option.
Well, you know Dana White, he'll throw in a circus fight every once in a while. What if Brock Lesnar makes a return?
Shit.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad at that for some reason because Brock is still yoked. I mean, he's probably on all types of horse tranquilizers. I doubt WWE tests for that stuff. But if he could get clean, like he's like 40, he's 44 or 45, but that's not old for heavyweight. Like what was it? Randy Couture fought till 47 at heavyweight, so that might not be too far-fetched. That'd be definitely a circus fight.
Or you have DC try to get back in there. You know, Jones beat him at light heavyweight. You know, maybe DC tries to step in and say, hey, you know, I was the heavyweight king for a while. Let's run it at heavyweight.
That and the Brock Lesnar is pretty far fetched, but I think you might even have a better chance of getting Brock Lesnar than the third. But like you said, they would have a new fold, the heavyweight aspect of it. But I think the same result happens.
Just the heavyweight division's so dry right now. They got to do something if they want to keep John Jones, at heavyweight. They're going to have to come up with some kind of enticing fight. Maybe they get Ryan Bader back, from Bellator because he's the heavyweight champ over there, and they've ran it before.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess that's kind of a good problem to have, like trying to find contenders for John Jones being back, as long as he stays back and out of trouble. So we're going to wrap it up in a little bit, fellas. But before we do that, I just wanted to get into you guys fight of the month picks. What do you have, Admire?
The Gaethje fight the other night. That was fight of the month for me. It's pure violence. I mentioned earlier I like the long drawn out fights when it's kind of even and stuff. So that kind of fits it. And it stayed on the feet. It wasn't a wrestle show or anything like that. It was just punching each other in the face. Whenever you have a Muay Thai boxer in there, it's always action. And Justin Gaethje, he's the highlight for a reason.
Definitely. That might be another running for the fight of the year. What say you, Steve? What's your fight of the month pick?
That was an interesting fight, but I'm going to have to go just for the symbology of it. John Jones, how easy it was with an elite striker, waited for him to strike, took him down, carried him down like a baby, and got the submission. So I think in the significance of that's his first heavyweight fight and made it so easy, I think that should be the fight of the month for me.
Yeah, definitely pretty symbolic fight. I'm gonna go with Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Jeff Neal. That was a straight banger. First fighter to win fight of the night after missing weight. So that's got to say something.
Oh yeah,
that's big. If Dana's giving you a missed weight.
So I've got that as my fight of the night pick. And Jeff Neal, he always puts on bangers. So I'm curious to see where both of those fighters go after that. So that before we meet up to talk about UFC 287, any fights in between that y'all looking forward to?
I am looking forward to not only the Israel and Pieta, but more of I want to see that Aljamain and Cejudo.
Okay, yeah, so those are both of the pay-per-views. So y'all hear that on future episodes. But before we meet up next time, I'm looking forward to this weekend's fight. The Corey Sandhagen and Chito Vera fights this weekend. So
oh yeah,
that should be a banger. Whoever wins this fight won't get a title shot next, but they'll set themselves up for, I guess, whenever they give Sean O'Malley his title shot. Both of those guys will be in good position. Whoever wins this fight this weekend will be in good positions. And I know it's not MMA, but David Benavidez fights. He fights Caleb Plant this weekend.
Caleb Plant. See, that's what I was going to say. That's the fight that I'm looking forward to. I dip a lot into the boxing. All the UFCs and MMA fights coming up. I'm interested in all of them pretty much. Nothing really sticks out. But boxing, I want to see what Caleb Plant does. He was riding a lot of hype for a while, and he took a loss, and he's back with Benavidez in the ring.
Good shit. Well, we're gonna wrap it up here, but going forward in the future, it's gonna be a bi-monthly podcast. So we'll do a pre-fight show and a post-fight show around the UFC pay-per-view cards. So thanks for the listeners for coming with us on this journey. And maybe if there's demand out there, maybe we'll do a few pop-up episodes once in a while. If it's a big fight night or a Bellator card, maybe we'll do that in the future as well. But from now on, it's going to be a twice a month podcast. And shout out to J-Bomb for putting all this together. And any shouts out or plugs y'all want to do before we go off?
Well, for me, we got a couple things. I'm on 80 proof. EJ's on boot to the face. Jay does Talkmania on the side. We have a couple listeners that have their own podcasts. The Irish Whip I think he has one still. Chaos Theory. Him and his wife, they have a new swingers podcast. If that's your thing, check that out. So a lot of podcasts in our little community going around.
Any shots off for you, Steve?
Well, I like to shout out. When I said I'm getting out of my comfort zone, this is my first podcast, doing online video. So I'm happy I can spend this time and have this experience with y'all for the first time. I'm actually enjoying it, actually. So I like to appreciate it.
Well, that'll do it for us here at Haymaker MMA premiere episode. And until next time, deuces.
Peace.